Why am I still arguing with people about the nature of terrorism and then the nature of the source of that terrorism? Because certain people think that it's Iran, just because Trump told them, just because Obama did a terrible deal with Iran and it involved nuclear weapons, etc., and giving that country actual power, doesn't mean that Saudi Arabia is completely innocent. Because Saudi Arabia are the ones that have been exporting Wahhabism into moderate countries that were previously fairly moderate, but now they're hardline Sharia. The hardline Sharia ideology comes out of Mecca. It doesn't come out of Iran. It doesn't come out of the desert randomly. The UN Human Rights Council is run by Saudi Arabia, not Iran. The UN Women's Rights Council is run by Saudi Arabia, not Iran. There are no women's rights, no human rights, no gay rights, no anything in Saudi Arabia. But, they're really progressive because bin Salman is so wonderful because Trump told me. Iran don't control the UN. Right, the UN are the ones pushing the Migrant Pact. They want everyone to have unlimited migration and they want to treat illegal migration as a human right. Not Iran. Saudi Arabia is doing that. Saudi Arabia runs the UN. The UN are pushing the Migrant Pact. That's the link. It's very straightforward when you understand what you're looking for. When you don't just fall for sycophantic things that your trusted leaders say because you trust them unconditionally. I was actually told that someone said they weren't sycophantic, but they trust their leaders unconditionally. I could not believe the irony. It was like Don Lemon saying, we've got to stop judging people on the colour of their skin and realise that the problem is white men. We've got to stop using hateful rhetoric, but Trump is a Nazi and literally Hitler. There's no room for nuance anymore. We know that the media is propaganda, but right-wingers don't seem to understand what that propaganda is for, or why they're propagandising the public, or why they're censoring people on social media like Laura Loomer and shutting them down. And that's why it's not acceptable, because when you understand why they're doing it as a prelude to doing more, not just silencing, but removing people from society, to build their dominance, to maintain their hegemony, when you realise that's the case, you can't just let them get away with it. And right-wingers need to stop being blasé about this censorship and stop saying, there might be bias in the censorship. There might be bias. There is bias, but there shouldn't be censorship at all. I spent half these videos, hundreds of videos, criticising left-wingers, criticising the regressive left, criticising the extremists, everyday people that we see that, have become hateful, that go around saying, love Trump's hate. But they're the ones that are Antifa, they're the ones that silence free speech, they're the fascists, they're the actual censorious, horrible people that are illiberal, that claim to be liberal, and the New World Order has been rebranded as a liberal world order to appease these people and maintain its hegemony. I'm bound to get told off for talking too fast. Right, to me, it's very straightforward. I see the puppet leaders, I can tell who's what, I can tell who's a globalist, I can tell who's a nationalist, who's a real nationalist, not just a fake nationalist like the SNP. When powers are devolved and then people want to stay in a European Union and claim to want independence but to stay in the European Union, they're not real nationalists. And if Steve Bannon doesn't list them as these nationalists, etc., they're not included either because, this is an example of that is when SNP's Nicola Sturgeon refused to go on the stage with Steve Bannon, a real nationalist. So a fake nationalist refuses to go on the stage with a real nationalist. A censorious leftist refuses to go on the stage with a populist. And that's because they are mirror opposites of each other. But for all my time criticising the left, criticising the idiots, criticising the snowflakes, the right-wingers are just thick. I just had a conversation with someone about Macron and they said, where's your proof that Macron's corrupt? They're saying that the people protesting is the problem. Yeah, because you shouldn't protest a corrupt government, but apparently they're not corrupt, are they? Even though Macron came onto the EU national anthem, even though he's a Rothschild banker who was positioned in place to get there, he was a sex slave all his life and all kinds of documentation about that. On the day of his election, there was information that came out about his tax evasion and his schemes, etc., which were banned in France on the day. They were banned from being released even though it was public knowledge. Those leaks came out on the day, even a few days before that. I know the truth about Macron. Macron is the globalist who is replacing Merkel in the EU because Merkel has fallen from power. That is why Macron says that nationalism is the opposite of patriotism. That is why he comes on to the global national anthem of the EU. That is why he says that France no longer belongs to the French and that it shares its destiny with Africa. And that is why he's passing the UN Migrant Pact to make illegal migration a human right. And according to these right-wingers, according to these establishment types, people shouldn't rebel against that. They should just accept that corruption. Because apparently, according to these people, only leftists rebel, only leftists complain. Yeah, good luck with that.